Yeah.
Do you mind somebody sending a picture? I'm out of a book today. I left it in my
You got
car.
it, but I have to I'm just parking my car, and if anybody else has it immediately, they can do it, but I'll get to it in about 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Zeke,
Michael,
is it what you sent, Zeke?
What's that?
It's what you just sent around on WhatsApp.
Oh,
Mishnah Berurah
that might
671.
be. Well, I don't know if that's cool. I don't know if 671 is Kuf Mem Aleph. I think I was in the top area when I sent that, but it's in that thing. I mean, in Safari for sure. You have to find the right one.
On that link?
Which pasuk?
Or it's not Kuf Mem Aleph, Ricky. What's that? What's that in?
Kuf Mem Aleph, page Kuf Mem Aleph, and it's Seif Bet.
What's Kuf Mem Aleph in English?
Kuf Mem Aleph is 140. Is 141.
141. So try that. Try doing 141 and see if you get there.
Let's see.
Sarich
I'm behind the garbage truck now.
Sarich Likrot is Aleph.
So we're in Bet. We're in the Kuf Mem Aleph.
The Afilu.
No, we're on the top. Shachach o Ezid v'lo hidlik. Okay, let's do this. The page before it is page 280. So this is effectively page 281.
Oh, but he's not in the paper book. He's on Safari.
Yeah.
Oh, you're on a different book. Okay.
He's on Safari online.
Huh? Okay. So Siman Taf Resh Ayin Bet. That's the same Siman we've been in. So go to Mishnah Berurah on Safari.
Okay.
And then go to Siman Taf Resh Ayin Bet. Maybe that'll be helpful.
It's numbers. It's all numbers.
I got it. Tafresh Ayin Bet in Hebrew. You have to change it to the Hebrew there. That's fine. Tafresh Ayin Bet. I got it.
Okay.
Bet. Boom. Here we go. I'm sending the link if you want.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Let's see. Share. Where's the share button? Come on, share, baby. Where are you? That's not it. Where's share? And it's in the chat. Go. That should be right. So it starts, Ricky. It starts with Im Sof Shitkia.
Yeah, Im Sof Shkia, but keep going. Go a little further to where you see the bet, and it says
Then the bet would be Shem Hu Tarod.
Go to the bet.
Go to the
Keep
bet.
going to see the not She'im Hu Tarod, the stronger bet, the more pronounced bet without any parentheses around it.
Oh, okay. It's further down here.
It's like the bet in bold.
Let's see. Why is that not showing up for me? Bet in bold.
Not below.
It's just it's a few lines further down the page than what you just read.
Oh.
It's one line further.
So then that would be no.
So you read the small bet, right? You read that little bet, She'im Hu Tarud, right? So just continue on that line. Look at the next one. Next line.
Okay. All right. Oh.
Okay. You want to just start from the beginning of that, Steve? We'll go to the beginning. And Mandikin, Tafresh Ayin Bet. You want to do that?
Well, again, I'm parking my car, so I'm going to be upstairs in a couple of minutes, but whatever everybody wants to do. Okay,
because everybody needs the access that you're looking up, right?
Right. So it's She'im. Why is there no big bet like you're talking about? Is the question.
Okay, so you know what?
Yeah, I'm not seeing it either.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's just go to Tafresh Ayin Bet to the beginning of that Siman, and we'll take it from there. Ein Madlikim Ner Hanukah Kodem Tishka Hachama. Do you have that?
So wait, 672. Going back to that again. Let me just do that. 672. right? So it was Im Sof, right? Im Sof or She'im Hu Tarod, that one?
Yeah, but
Where-
just where it begins, just the beginning of that, the beginning. En Madikin Ner Hanukah.
Why is that not? Did I read that before and I'm not finding it right now? I'm sorry, I'm driving and it's like I'm having a hard
Yeah,
time
no,
doing this.
I'm not seeing it either. I'm seeing Im Sof Aleph, and then Bet Koshe Im Hu.
Okay, fine. It's a few words before the Im Sof. It's where the sentence begins. But
So maybe I'll go to 671. Maybe that's where that is. Let's just look at that. Let's see that. 671. That's where we were yesterday. 671. So that would be the end of this, maybe. No, I don't know where that is. That's not right.
all right, you know what? Whatever you have, we'll start from there. It's all good.
All right, so guys, whatever you guys have, because I'm in the car, so
All right, so,
672.
672. Go with that.
Okay.
Im
you
Sof.
have that?
Im Sof.
Sonny, so where does it start? With what words?
Im Sof. Shekiata.
Good, fine. All right, so I'm going to give you the beginning of the line. I don't know why it's not giving you that. But en madlikim ner Hanukah kodem shetishka hama. We don't light the ner of Hanukah before shikiata hama, right? So shikiata hama is sunset. So the mitzvah is that it has to be at minimum dark enough where it's sunset, but really the core mitzvah is the end of sunset. Like it says here, ve'ela im sof shikiata, at the end of sunset. So halachically, what's the end of sunset? Is what called what? The end of sunset is what?
The end of sunset is night, right?
The end of sunset is Seta Kochavim, is when the stars come out. Hey, Jacob. Hi, honey. The end of sunset is Seta Kochavim. Jake, we're in the Mishnah Berurah. Do you have the deer shoe with you or no?
I don't have the deer shoe, but I got the safari that somebody sent. I have that pulled up. What are you in exactly?
Okay, so Zeke is going to resend the safari in a minute. Okay, so we're saying that the Halakat Nerot Chanukah, so the question becomes, what if a person did it before Sof Shkiat Chama? So you have a question now. So the time to light the candles is the sun goes down, it's sunset, and now you have the 15 minutes until the stars come out, and that's the prescribed time. That's the ideal time. Now the question is, what if someone is tarud or someone is anus? If someone has a place he or she has to go, and the only opportunity to light it is when it's daylight, or the only opportunity to light it is when it's dark, but the stars haven't come out yet. So let's see what Maran is bringing. Okay, Sonny, you want to read?
Yeah. From Hayinu.
Im soshkiata.
היינו צאת הכוכבים שאז העם
No,
עוברים.
read on top. Read on top. Do you have the top or no?
If you click on it, you'll get the top over there. If you click on the Im Sof, you'll get right under it. It'll take you to the Shulchan Aruch, Orach Chaim, and it'll say Zeman Hadlakat Ner, En Madlikin Ner Hanukah Kodem. Is that what you're talking about, Ricky?
Yeah.
Kodem Shtikia. Yeah. So you have to click on it, and then it'll open up something that says it'll open up and give you options that says resources, and then on that you're going to go to Halacha Shulchan Aruch, and then you're going to click that. I know it's a lot, but that's how that site works.
I'm supposed to scroll down.
It's in English
And
though.
it's in both Hebrew and English.
Oh.
You have to change the language settings.
Okay,
One
fine.
second.
Shulchan Aruch, I think I got it.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
I know, but it's in English.
Click there's a A
Oh,
up
I got
top.
it. Zeman
English.
Hadlakat. Okay, I got it.
There you go. He got it.
Zeman Hadlakat Ner Chanukah, right? אין מדליקים נר חנוכה קודם שתשקיע החמה, אלא עם סוף שקיעתה לא.
Great. Okay, good. So we said that ideally, not ideally, but the halacha is that we light the Nerot Hanukah with Sof Shkia. Sof Shkia is when the stars come out. So it's 15 minutes. So if sunset in a week or so is, let's say, 4:25. So the ideal time to light mitzvot would be, to light the Nerot would be 4:40. Okay, keep going.
סוף שקיעה חכמה, אלא אם סוף שקיעתה לא מאחרים ולא מקדימים.
Makdimim. What does that mean? Lo me'achrim velo makdimim. What does that mean? Lo lehitkadem, lo lehitkadem. Huh?
It's not before and it's not afterwards. So
Beautiful. It's not before and it's not after. Good. Now, keep going. V'yesh mishomer. So we have a stam v'yesh, right? We have a stam v'yesh. We know when we have the stam halacha and a yesh. Michael, what's the story?
always goes
Stam
with the
v'yesh. Huh?
stam. Goes with the stam.
We go with the stam. Good. Great. Go on. So keep going, Sonny.
ויש מי שאמר שאם הוא טרוד יכול להליק מפלג, what's that word? There's no נקודות.
So let's see. Ubelvad, keep going.
ובלבד שתיתן בה שמן עד שתחלה רגל מן השוק.
Excellent. So what is he saying here? Somebody's leaving the house, right? Or they have something they have to go to, a shiur, whatever it might be, and they're not going to be able to be home at that 4:45 time period. Let's call it 4:45, 15 minutes after Shkia. So he says like this, that there's yeshami the small. It's not ideal, but you can depend on the opinion that says that you can light it before with a beracha, which is pretty fascinating. You can light it before with a beracha, assuming that it's going to stay lit until that time period when we need it. In other words, ideally, I'm lighting it at 4:45. I have to leave my house at 4:30 or 4:20, whatever time is, because I have to go someplace. No way I could light at 4:45. But if I put in enough oil where it's going to stay lit a half hour after 4:45, because ideally it stays lit for 30 minutes. So if I put in enough oil where it stays lit till 5:15, then I can light it early. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the
So it
yesh?
has to, so it's a half an hour afterwards, or it just has to kind of overlap?
Exactly. So
But-
I need to have enough oil in there, other than on Erev Shabbat when I'm lighting it earlier. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But generally speaking, I need enough oil in there for it to stay lit 30 minutes. Now we learn the halacha that in terms of Nerot Hanukah, that the mitzvah behadlaka, important term to own. Mitzvah behadlaka, meaning that the mitzvah is fulfilled the second you light it. Mitzvah behadlaka, meaning if the candles were lit in an appropriate place where, generally speaking, they should stay lit, but for some reason a crazy wind came, blew the window open and took the candles out, whatever, something absolutely unexpected.
Right.
After a
good.
second or a minute, it's
You're
absolutely fine. Because mitzvah bahadlaka, the mitzvah of Nerot Hanukah is fulfilled with the hadlaka, the second it's lit. But what's supposed to be done is it's supposed to be able to burn for 30 minutes. So if you set it up to burn only for a minute and it burned out after a minute, then the mitzvah wasn't fulfilled. But if the person set it up to burn for 30 minutes in a place where it could sustain that burning because there was nothing coming at it, no wind, no instability in the table, whatever it might be, and it burned out in less time, even as little time as a minute, then you fulfilled the mitzvah. Now, what he's adding here is that somebody is tarud and can't light at the exact time. So if it's already dark out, meaning it's sunset, and you want to light earlier, fine, light earlier, as long as there's enough oil for it to stay lit a half hour after the ideal lighting time. So to use our examples, sunset is 4:30, Zet HaKochavim is 4:45, right? The stars come out at 4:45. I can only light at at 4:30. I can't be around at 4:45. So how much oil did I have to put in? How much worth of oil for it to burn for how long?
A half hour after
40,
4:45.
45 minutes.
Yeah, right, exactly. So it's 45 minutes worth of oil. Excellent. Okay, good. Now, so the question becomes, well, can I light it while it's still daylight? Now over there, it's more tricky. Over there, it's more tricky. Ideally, we don't really want to be doing that. And if it's a question of me doing it or somebody else doing it, once it's dark, better to have the other person do it on my behalf once it's dark. And as we said, over here, the mitzvah is ned ishu beto. That means that everybody in the house has the same level of responsibility. Now, the question is, 7, 8-year-old kid, there's a question of whether that child has the same level of responsibility. So we generally shy away from that. But there are those who say even a 7, 8-year-old kid who has already gotten to the age of Hanukah, where he or she understands what they're doing, could be motzi everybody else. Generally speaking, we wait till the child is a little bit older, but these days kids are so sophisticated that if you're in a difficult place and the only person who can light at the prescribed time is someone is a younger adult, a young adult who understands it, it's not something that you want to rush to do, but it's something that you could do. Okay, so that as long as the candles will stay lit for that half hour beyond the Tzeta Kochavim, the time when the stars come out. Clear or not?
Yeah.
I'll pass that. Right. Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, everybody has it now in front of them?
I have the book. I got the hard copy now. I'm legit.
Okay, great. So Zeke, you want to read?
Okay, so we're at Madlikin at where did we get up to? Yachol Hadik?
Now we're up to bet on the Maran on the top of the page.
She'im?
Shachach or lo hidlik or hizid.
Wait. I was on Aleph, or should I go to Bet? Where am I here? Sorry.
Bet on the top of the bet. Yeah, stay on the top in
Right.
Shulchan Aruch. Just
big bet,
finish
right?
Aleph. Let's do bet.
Shachach, okay. Shachach or Hezid velo hadlik im shkiya hahama madlik beholeh ad techile regel min hashuk shehu kemo hatzi sha'a she'az ha'am ovrim ושבים בעיקר פרסומנס, ניסה.
Excellent. So what do we do? So what is Maran saying, Zeke? Explain it.
Saying, let's see. So, Shachach or Hezid, below hadlik.
Shachach or hizid.
Or you forgot, or you hesitated, right? And you did it, and you
forgot.
Right. Either forgot to light or intentionally didn't light on time. Right. Now what?
All right. So below hadlik. So now already the stars came out. Madlik v'holech he went.
Regel min hashuk. This is a term that the Gemara uses. Anybody know what this term means?
From the office, I guess he's walking from work. The shuk.
The marketplace.
Right, exactly. Until people are typically home. Now, in the old days, when these were written, 500 years ago, people didn't venture out at night. It was very dangerous. There was no light in the street. It was very dangerous. So when the people got home from the market, they were home, and that was pretty much it. So the saying that even if a person intentionally didn't light on time, right? He could have gotten home on time, but didn't, or she. They can light as long as people are still in the street. Now, in those days, it was about a half hour after the stars came out. After that, everybody was home behind their walled buildings, probably. But these days, what would you say?
You can
How late can you light? Huh?
You can light through the night because you have people that are out.
Right.
So,
Yeah, these days people, you can certainly light till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. People are in the street. People are going to see it. You do have a little bit of a Marit Ayin issue here.
that you didn't light?
Huh?
That you didn't light, meaning people will pass by and see that you didn't.
Yeah. if you live in, if you live in Brooklyn, right,
Yeah.
where, houses close to each other. So, again, it's not a hardcore Marit Ayin, but
Do
it's
they speak about that at all? Do they speak about Marit Ayin in this context?
Yeah, I would.
No, I'm saying, does it explicitly, does Shulchan Aruch
No,
speak to
no,
it?
it doesn't. No,
Maritai meaning for not having a menorah window.
exactly, right.
Because
does it
what about assuming
explicitly-
the person doesn't want to burn his shades down or something like that? Why don't we take that approach?
Say that again?
Why don't we say the person doesn't want to burn his shades down or something like
No,
that?
fine, you could. That's why to Jake's point, there's not a mitzvah or a hagdara, a formal mitzvah of Marit Ayin here that we have to be wary of, but it's just a sensibility. Mr. X, Miss Y, family X, family Y, what is the assumption vis-a-vis that family? And again, most people in our community don't think about these things, right? I would guess, but it's just something to be, to be mindful of, that, is someone, to be lighting at 10 o'clock at night, it's absolutely mitzad hadin, it's absolutely okay. Is it something that you want to try and avoid? Yeah, and then I'm saying that, like in Israel, for example, people will rush home to be home by, let's call it 4:45, to light the candles, certainly the first night. Certainly, everybody should try to do that at least the first night. And then they'll even go and do work after that. After the half-hour time that the candle is lighting there, the men are machmir on themselves not to work, even though, as we learned, the deen of not to work is really chal on the women, not on the men. The men, in some cases, are machmir on themselves not to work during the time that the candles are lit, and then they'll go back to work after that, and like that. But to be home is at that time is the ideal thing to do. But as we said, in our day, regel min hashuk is certainly extended dramatically, and to say 10, 11 o'clock at night is certainly not a problem.
Can we talk
So
about the wording? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Wait, no, just a quick question. So the timing all has to do with the visibility of the menorah to other people.
That's right. That's absolutely
Okay.
right. Because what's the driver here? What is the driver? And
Driver is Pishur Mehanes.
Pirsumei Hanes, to further. Right?
Exactly. So that's the driver. And that's the driver to the extent that it overshadows everything. And like we said, it overshadows a lot of other dinim that we simply ignore in the context of lighting the candles. Like we said, it overshadows Bal Tosif, not overdoing the mitzvah. We said the beautification of this mitzvah is not 30%, it's 800%. So we ignore that because we don't allow that. You never allow someone to go beyond that, beyond 30% Hidur mitzvah, except for this mitzvah. Why? Because the driver is Persimenisa.
Wow.
And that's the driver across the board here. And that's like we said, can you get out with electric? Yes. Are candles better than electric, and therefore you should use candles? Yes. Is oil better than candles? You should use oil? Yes. Is olive oil better than regular oil? You should use olive oil because it burns more beautifully, and there's more of a Pirsumei Nisa there, more of a publication of the miracle? Yes.
Great.
What if somebody is like outside of the tchum, so to speak? Is the halachot the exact same for him in terms
Excellent.
of?
It's an excellent question. So we have this issue in terms of the Chot Shabbat. And the question is, what does somebody have to be sensitive to if they're outside the tchum? Whereas inside
think
the
about
boundary.
Marit Ayin as it relates to hiring
Excellent.
workers and
Excellent. So what do we say in terms of Shabbat?
in terms of Shabbat, for what though, specifically?
Okay, so across the board in terms of Marit Ayin, in terms of Shabbat, and somebody living outside of where the community lives, right? Outside the tchum, outside where people go. The Hanukah is that if people will stroll there, if people will walk around there. So if somebody lives 5 blocks from where the concentration of people is, and the mahalach is that people do walk there on Shabbat because they're walking, they're taking walks, it's just that, then you have to be sensitive to it, even though you're outside of the area where there's typically an issue of marit ayin. So the same thing would apply here. If people would tend to be in that area, even if they'd be there less than they would be in the area of concentration, if they tend to be in that area, then you have to be sensitive to it.
Yep. So it's the same. Yeah. Translates the same way.
It
Like, for
translates
example, you have somebody building you, you have a non-Jewish worker building you a building and you're fully outside the Tchum, it's a different story in terms of
It's a
Marit
different
Ayin.
story, exactly, 100% a different story, unless people tend to walk there or it's visible from inside the Tchum. But if people
Right.
tend to walk there, even if you're outside the Tchum, it's considered inside the Tchum.
The interesting thing though here is, does it change? Does the status change because you can drive versus walk?
100%.
So if that's the
100%.
case here, then the actual distance you talk about with the Tchum is totally different, because if people
Exactly.
typically drive and you're 10 miles from somewhere, who
That's right.
knows? Then
That's a great
theoretically it
point,
should
Jay.
be.
It's a great
No
point. It's a great point. If we're not talking about Shabbat now, so my Tchum, my boundary is dramatically expanded, to your
Yeah.
point, because I'm not walking there, but I am driving there. So if I am driving there, then there's going to be a visibility that's much greater. So the point is, where does the typical inhabited, frequented area end for this and for that? And you're absolutely right.
The heavy traffic, is that what we're talking about? The most passersby? Is that
No,
what we're
like
saying?
if somebody, for example, lived in between, I don't know, some guy lived like in the middle of the highway and the city, and he was the
Right.
only house there. But everybody's coming home from work and they pass his single house. If it was Shabbat, nobody would walk there because it's too far. But in this case, it's rush hour. People
Right,
come
right.
back.
He knows that everybody's going to be walking by, frequenting his spot at that particular
Yeah.
time. That makes his obligation for that time.
Yeah, whereas
Exactly.
on Shabbat, nobody would go there because he's whatever it is, he's 5 miles away. Nobody's gonna walk there. So
But you want to throw another mulligan into that one, Ricky? What about Marita Ayin on ourselves? What about that? What about our own internal Marita Ayin?
What does that mean?
Well, we talked about if you're on a desert island and how these rules apply, right? If you're alone, if you're the only person on there, right?
To that point, there is a concept of Marit Ayin in your own house, I'm correct, when
That's
nobody's
right.
gonna see. Right?
Yeah.
So
And hotel room.
I'm personally, I'm not fully clear on how that works.
Well,
In
nobody
terms
is.
of because there's we kind of interchange what the Ikar is on the Marit Ayin in certain halachot. So
So I think the reason is that people mix it up a little bit when people talk about it. So maybe to clarify it a little bit, we'll do that. So it goes like this. Harambam writes that there's something that a person can be mechalel shem shamayim bechadei chadarim. A person can desecrate God's name, even alone in a house, in a room in a house where nobody would see him. Now, Harambam drops a bombshell when he says that, because up until that time, everybody thought that Kiddush Hashem or Chilul Hashem was something that had to include other people who were forming the opinion of whether the action done by Mr. Smith, Mr. Abraham, or whomever was a Kiddush Hashem or otherwise. Everybody thought that type of sensibility was based on something communal, or at least something that involved more than the person himself. When Harambam comes and says, no, a Chilul Hashem or a Kiddush Hashem can go on in the Chadrei Chadarim, in a person's house with nobody ever seeing it, he's making a very good point. His point is that Kadosh Baruch Hu is everywhere, in everything, seeing everything, and therefore someone can desecrate God's name just by himself doing something or watching something or speaking something, whatever it might be. So that's a sensibility. Where people mix that up is they mix it up in thinking that someone can be over on Marit Ayin, can transgress Marit Ayin also by himself. that's obviously not the case.
So interesting.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what the specific halacha is. I think maybe it's in terms of kashrut or eating fish and something. I can't remember what it is. But you can
What's
be
that? For
mechalel,
Marit Ayin alone?
mechalel, marit ayin in your own house, and there's no chashash of any other people seeing you. Like I can't. I'm
I
forgetting
never
what it
heard of
is.
that. I'd love to see it. I
I
never
got
heard
it.
of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna send it to you if I can get it. because I
Okay.
was-
I'd love to see that. I never heard of that, but that is interesting. But okay, good. So
But you're saying that the Rambam's right. The logic there has nothing to do with Marit Ayin, and if in any instance where people are thinking that is, it's totally just under this.
right, but and that's a very important. That was a big chidush that Hanuman brought. That Kiddush Hashem or otherwise can go on just in absolute privacy of a person's home, and that raises the bar significantly because we know that people could be in and out of their keeping of mitzvot. But if someone is in and out of Chilul Hashem, that's a very hard thing to clean up.
Very
It's
hard.
very hard to clean it up. You know, Harambam is mefaret in Hilchot Teshuvah how difficult it is for a person to get away from that. And you know, for people like us, and you know, and I think this is part of the reason that some people, you know, find refuge, so to speak, in being Haredi, because when you're Haredi and you dress a certain way and you recluse yourself a certain way, the chances of getting in trouble with Chilul Hashem are dramatically lessened. They're not zero, but they're dramatically lessened. But we live in the world where we're open by design. That's what we want. We want to embrace the world. We want to engage the world, and we thrive on that. You know, we like that, and we need to know that because of that, it's tougher for us to avoid these circumstances. I'm going to give you an example. I helped somebody many years ago launch a publication. Like a documentary a number of years ago. And so I helped him, a young, bright, creative Syrian guy, and wanted to just do my piece to help him get started. And then he sent a thing that he was, you know, screening the film. And I said, I don't know if I could go or not. I don't have any idea what the parameters were of the film. I'm not suggesting that there was anything inappropriate, but I don't know if there was. So if I was in the Haredi world, I wouldn't have helped him altogether, and he wouldn't have approached me.
Right.
Being that I'm not in the Haredi world, nor is he's doing this, and I'm not saying he did anything wrong in the film at all. I don't have any idea. And he did approach me. So the question then becomes, from a Chilul or Kiddush Hashem perspective, it's A. And here again, in this case, happens to be, now I think about it, there's a Marit Ayin issue possibly as well. Because if there was anything in the film that wasn't so cool, you know, for me to be sitting in the room, you know, it wouldn't have been such a good thing. So these are the things that we have to be very front and center on. And particularly in the Kiddush Hashem, Chilul Hashem area, as I mentioned, it's much, much more demanding upon us than it is keeping this mitzvah or not.
Yeah. Marit Ayin on its own is just very complex and.
So the Rambam would contend that the tree makes a sound, I guess.
That the tree makes a sound. That's right.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
But not for the Marit Ayin issue. It's nothing to do with Marit
Yeah.
Ayin.
No, he would.
No, he's
He would
saying
absolutely
he's saying
contend-
it from the perspective of Kiddush and Chilul Hashem. He's not saying you know, you can't do it because somebody's going to see you when you're in public, so therefore you can't do it in private. That's not the logic, right?
No.
Uncle Rick,
It's
you said
two
the
different
logic-
areas of halakha. Two
Right.
different areas of halakha.
I need to
And as a
find-
person grows, he needs to. I'm going to tell you an interesting thing, and then we'll go back to the text. there's a couple of rabbis who I'm very close to, and we share ideas, this, that, advice, this, that, very good. One of them told me once, a handful of years ago, he says, you have to greet everyone with a hiyuch, with a smile. Really? And the other guy doesn't have to greet everyone with a smile? Why is that? He goes, that's correct. But that's what you have to do. Interesting. I thought about it for a long time. And then, and it was within a certain area of my life and people. And I thought about it for a long time. And then I realized how right it was that in this particular area, this particular crowd of people, and it was a large crowd of people, that was the right thing for me to do. So the point being that as a person builds his life in a certain way and tries to build his family in a certain way, these things become more real and they have to be top of mind. Yeah, they have to be top of mind. And it's good if they're top of mind. It's good. Nobody lives in a vacuum. And to the extent, like you said, Zeke, when the tree falls, there is a sound. And when somebody does something, even it is something. So these are things that we have to be aware of. Good?
Good.
Okay,
Yeah, Ricky,
great.
it's similar to what you said in the summer. You wouldn't wear shorts around town. You have to kind of act the part.
That's
based
right, you have
on
to act the part.
your place in the world.
Yeah. And you know what, Michael, that it's much harder for us. It's much harder for the people who choose not to just,
Yeah, if you want to
check
go in
out
your
of
little
it.
enclave and you don't have
Yeah.
to think about and
Yeah.
struggle with all these things,
That's
it's
right.
certainly
Yeah.
a lot easier.
Yeah, sometimes I think that's the thing to do because it's very hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Once you stick your head above the crowd, you get your potential for getting smacked down are much greater.
100%. And that's why in our community today, I think in particular, where we have this huge upsurge of Haredi lifestyle, and I'm not criticizing anybody at all, and I see great benefits in that lifestyle and not that lifestyle, but I think a lot of people are running for the hills. I think they're running for the hills, and you hear more and more often now that if it's my child putting on a black hat or he or she having an iPhone open with all the junk that comes with it, I'll take the black hat. Now, the answer is it doesn't have to be A or B,
Right.
and there's an intelligent place somewhere in the middle, but the place in the middle is not an easy place to manage.
And
like I said,
yeah.
I gave the guy the money for the film, and then I didn't go to the show.
Right.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a harder thing to manage.
Yeah. And the thing is, Ricky, is that all of the leaders that we see around us, even they, I'm not including, but you see it happen all the time where there's just a limited amount or a finite amount of time where until it gets too hot in the kitchen and somebody leaves, the rabbi's not with the shul anymore. It happens every single day. And you say, oh no, he got too black or that, no. It just got where, people for some reason cannot grow together. Everybody's, once that happens.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah, and it is hard.
For sincere reasons, for true reasons, for sincere reasons. And you guys who are committed to halacha, you're committed to learning, you're committed to building. For you, this is going to be harder. Thank God, it's going to be harder. And you need to know that.
It's not a positive thing. It's not a constructive.
It's very much a positive.
Is
very
it?
much a positive. And where it's not a positive is when people don't understand who they are.
Well,
Then it's
yes,
not a positive.
but you need a leader to stick around. The leaders keep.
I don't care about the leaders. I'm saying like this: if Zeke Abraham is learning 2 mornings a week instead of 1 morning a week, or 3 mornings a week instead of 2 mornings a week, he is at a different place and he needs to act differently in general, exclusive of his learning.
True.
That's just the way it goes.
True, but we also have an obligation to be concerned for, not judge, at all, but to be concerned with the community at large, right?
I agree, but let's do this. Let's do this. You're right. Let's do this. Let's keep building ourselves and our children.
Right.
And let's project to them what we want.
Yes.
You know, we did a study a number of years ago, and we asked elementary school children, what is the image they have of their father?
Right.
What do you think it was?
What is the image they have of their father at work at a desk?
If they had to draw a picture.
Business related.
I'm not saying it. Huh?
At work at a desk somewhere, for sure.
If they had to draw a picture of their father.
With the iPhone in his hand, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. What you want your child to do, what you want your child to do is you want your child to have a picture of his father with a book in his hand, right? If you're a committed Jew, a book in his hand, who's also successful at everything else he does, right? At his career, at his profession, at his hobbies. That's what you want your child to do. You want your child to look at his father as a chacham, as a person with a number of core interests. The number one of which is Torah, based on which he thrives. To be able to have a conversation with him about all those things. That's what the image that you want. And to do that is a very overt effort. Very hard. Huh?
You have to work backwards from that image, saying you have to grow into that image that you want your child drawing of you, right?
It's about just putting it in. It's about silly things like the books being visible in the house.
Right.
It's just that simple. Yeah. It's just that makes a big statement. And you know, some people learn at home a couple of times a week, in addition to learning in the Bet Midrash or the synagogue, so that their kids see it.
Right.
And that's a very important value. Okay, good. All right, let's go.
Ricky, just one last question. One last question. Going back to the community in Syria, in Aleppo, you didn't have any of these problems, really. I mean, not that I know firsthand, but everyone was kind of uniform and everyone did the same thing. They all went to shul together. Everyone really followed, very similar halachot. There was a lot less noise around.
There was a lot less noise. You're absolutely right, Michael.
So they didn't have this struggle.
I don't know about that.
I remember when I was a kid.
I gotta jump. But
when I was, when I was a teenager, the community was less religious. But the community was less religious. Who got off? Somebody got off?
Or maybe, yeah. Maybe
nephew.
Your nephew, yeah.
Okay. The community is less religious, but yeah, these issues were less pronounced. It's true. And there's a lot to talk about with it, but I think that the biggest issue for people now is who are not in the black hat portion of the community, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's obviously it's a beautiful lifestyle, but for the people who are not, they have to know that their life is going to be more difficult when it comes to Torah and mitzvot, and they have to be extra aware. It's much easier to live in the other place. And if we choose not to, and you're right, Michael, it was not this complex in Syria. Nobody put on a black hat. There wasn't this type of bifurcation in the community. And it's only going to get more. It's not going to get less, for good and otherwise. But we who don't choose that lifestyle, but are very committed to Torah and learning and halakha, we have to just we have to walk on the whatever.
Right. But you know what? I want to speak to that for a second because it's so hard for me to keep my mouth shut when this happens. But, there's always been from the beginning of Judaism, I believe, as soon as it could, this concept of if there were two Jews, there'd be three shuls. That was always a thing. It wasn't now. Now it's bigger, right? Now we have more. But I think in Halev it was, I would assume, I went to a shul the other night where they had a wall of all the rabbis of old, all the first, from the 1800s and up, our community leaders and all the names. And it was a very big board of people that were up there. It was vast. It was beautiful to see that so many. But I have to imagine then that even with that broad of a amount of people, that there was probably contention that I don't know about. I'm not, and I don't want to know, but I'm saying it just wasn't. Maybe it was a smaller, less communicated problem or contention. so to speak, that we didn't know about. But I think it was, and I think that the mistake sometimes that we make is thinking we need to go back to, no, we grow. We need to go to a different, whatever it is, it's not back there, it's forward, I think.
It's clearly forward, and you're right. There always has to be difference of opinion and so on.
Right.
Yeah, but the main point I want to focus to here is that being in the middle is very hard.
Yeah.
And just in terms of the areas that we're talking about now, Marit Ayin and Chilul Hashem or Kiddush Hashem, just know that these are top of mind considerations, and they should be they should be thought about. And so in terms of the Hadakkat Nerot, it applies as well. Again, we said that because the time frame for people to get home from work and to vacate the streets is much later now, we have much more leeway in terms of lighting later.
Right.
Okay. Now the question becomes: let's just do who was reading?
Me.
Okay, so keep reading on the top.
Hilkach tzarich leten ba shemen kizeh. Hashur.
Meaning what? Like we said, if somebody is lighting earlier, you still have to put enough oil for it to burn 30 minutes after candle lighting. Now go to the next point, which is a beautiful chidush.
Im natan ba yoter יכול לכבותה לאחר שעבר זה הזמן וכן יכול להשתמש לאורה לאחר זה הזמן.
Good. So what is he talking about?
לאחר שעבר זה הזמן וכן יכול להשתמש לאורה to light after that time.
It's beautiful halacha. It's beautiful halacha. He says, let's say somebody, whatever they did, let's say, just not to put too many elements in the example, let's say they lit at, to use our time example, 4:45, which is 15 minutes after sunset, and they put in an hour's worth of oil, where they only need to put in 30 minutes worth of oil. Now, after that obligated time period,
you can use it to read.
Is over. I can get pleasure from the light.
I love that.
Beautiful thing.
Right.
I love that.
Right.
That's great.
My obligation. So now I can either extinguish the candles or I can go ahead and I could use the light. I could get hana'ah from the mitzvah.
On Shabbat, you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about Nerot Hanukah.
Regular Hanukah. Okay.
Could you use that oil again?
Huh?
Could you use that oil again? The extra oil?
Absolutely, Sonny. Beautiful. I can use the oil again. So the klal that they're talking to here is that asur la'anot min hamitzvot. I can't get side benefit from doing a mitzvah. And that's why, as we said, we light the shamash with the Nerot Hanukah. So if anybody by mistake gets any benefit from the lights that are coming from the Hanukah, we ascribe the benefit as having come from the shamash. But if the Hanukah burned for the time period it needed to burn, for the 30 minutes it needed to burn, I can take that, I can use the light now for a non-sacred benefit. I want to read a book. I could put it out. I can do what I want. So it's just a beautiful diuk. It's a beautiful discernment that the prohibition against getting pleasure from the mitzvah is only during the core period that the mitzvah has to be
specific. It's specific to the timing. That's great.
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
Great. What about the women having their time off from their obligations? Does that expire with the half hour as well?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Wow.
Throw them back in the kitchen and the laundry room. Right. Let's finish this. Go to skip the light print. Go back to the bold print.
The bold print. So then it's Shivizman.
Now skip the light print, go to the umihu.
ומיהו הנה לכתחילה, אבל אם עבר זה הזמן ולא הדליק מדליק והולך כל הלילה.
Keep going.
ואם עבר כל הלילה ולא הדליק, אין לו תשלומים.
Beautiful. What is he saying here? He's saying mihu. But what does the word mihu mean? Important to know the word mihu.
And
You see
someone,
the word mihu in halakha text a lot. Mihu means but. Mihu. And I'm not trying to be trivial. This but of
However,
mihu will often be used to blow up a whole logic. So
uh-huh.
when you see a mihu, not necessarily Maran Shulchan Aruch, but when you see a mihu like in the Torah or one of these books, the precursor of this, you're like, oh man, here we go again. It's a mihu. There's a but. Somebody's coming in to blow up this whole 22 lines of reasoning that preceded it. In our case, he's saying, mihu hani min lechatchila. Everything we said here about how long the candles have to burn and when they have to start burning is lechatchila, is the way you want to be doing the mitzvah in the best way. But if this time, if you weren't able to light by, let's say 4:45 in the old days, or 10 p.m. in our time, where people are generally out of the streets by then, you can light the whole night. But so then the question becomes, so now the prime time to light was, let's say 4:45, until the people are no longer, generally speaking, in the streets. Let's call that 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, whatever it might be. Maran is bringing that's l'chatchila. That's the way we hope to do it. That's the best way to do it. But if the time passed and you didn't do it that way, you could be madlik ve'olech kol halayla. You could light all night long. So then what's the question that comes up? If I could light all night long.
And there's no expiration. You could ishtamesh from the onset. You could ishtamesh from the onset of lighting.
No, you can't. No, you can't. Very good question. You can't. If whenever I'm lighting, my shiur, my minimum time when it has to be just candles is 30 minutes. So even if I light at 2 o'clock in the morning till 2:30 a.m., it just has to be the pristine light of the candles and the mitzvah associated with that. At 2:31, if I want to use the candles for something else, fine. But then the question becomes, well, does that mean there's tashlumim? Another term you want to know. What is tashlumim? Tashlumim means, can I make up the mitzvah? If I can extend the mitzvah beyond the time period when it was prescribed, beyond the time period when people are outside in the street, and do it all night, well, does that lead to another kula, to another leniency?
There's no do-overs.
Can I light?
No do-overs.
A do-over, right? Can I light on the second night, for the first night and the second night? The answer is en lo tashlumin. There is no making up. So even though the time period can be extended beyond the preferred time period, and when the person lights, even in the non-preferred time period, he fulfilled the mitzvah, or she, you can't make it, you can't go into another day or the next morning and make it up and like that. What is the classic case of something we can make up? We'll wrap up with this. What's the classic case of something we can make up?
Shachrit.
Beautiful.
You say mincha twice.
Excellent. Tefillah. So if I'm in a place where it's difficult to pray, I was driving home yesterday with someone, and the time of mincha was ending, and he kept saying, we got to pray, we got to pray, we got to pray, we got to pray, we got to pray. He really doesn't know the halacha. So we stopped the car and we prayed in the car. The reality was my level of prayer in the car was not great because it's hard. And your better bet is to say, okay, I'm in a car. I didn't intend to be in the car at that time. Obviously, it just worked out that way. We sat in a lot of traffic. But now I'm probably better off doing tashlumin, doing a double arbit, than I am saying mincha in a place where I'm tarud and I can't concentrate. So the concept, as Michael answered, the concept of tashlumin, of a makeup, applies in the most classic sense to tefillah. And if I'm in a place, if I'm in a business environment, just that ideally, I want to pray each prayer when it should be prayed. But if I'm in a place where I can't focus, I can't get there, whatever the reason is, so it doesn't have to be a catastrophic thing, just a legitimate practical reason. Now, because we're not perfect, we always qualify that tashlum, that's repetition of the amidah, which is what the tashlumin is all about. We always qualify it by telling HaKadosh Baruch Hu before we start praying that please consider this tefillat tashlumim, please consider this a makeup, and if I really didn't judge this right, and it shouldn't be a makeup, consider it tefillat nedava, consider it a voluntary prayer, which everybody has the right to pray as often as they want voluntarily all day long. So please consider it a tefillat tashlumin, but if you can't be a tefillat tashlumin, consider it a tefillat nedava. So whenever I'm doubling up, if I missed it, usually the hardest one is mincha, right? If I missed the mincha and I'm doubling up for abid, so I'll always say, Borei Olam or HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please consider this tefillat tashlumin, and if it's not tefillat tashlumin, consider it tefillat nedava.
Gotcha. It's like making an extra payment on your mortgage and wanting it to be for the principal, but they'll apply it anywhere else if it's not to the principal. Right?
Love you, Zeke. All right, gentlemen.
All right.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Ricky.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ricky.
Thank
Shabbat
you, Ricky.
shalom. That was
Shabbat
great.
shalom.
Thank you, everybody. All the
Thank
best.
you. Shabbat shalom.
Bye, you too.